The palace of Umuako buzzed with anticipation. Queen Nkem had gone into labor, and the royal family awaited the birth of the king's third child. When the midwife emerged from the chambers, her face was pale. "Your Majesty, the princess, she is unusual." King Obiora frowned. "Unusual?" The midwife hesitated. "She has 4 eyes." Gasps filled the room as the queen cradled the infant. The baby's two small eyes above her normal pale blinked innocently. "She is cursed," cried one elder. "No child of mine will bring shame to this house." King Obiora declared, his voice cold. He refused to hold the baby, leaving Queen Nkem to order the nursemaids to care for the child. From that day, Ifunanya was treated as a shadow in the palace. As Ifunanya grew, her 4 eyes became a source of ridicule. Her older sister Adaeze and her brother Chijioke tormented her relentlessly. "Look at her 4 eyes, and still blind to her disgrace." Adaeze sneered one afternoon as Ifunanya sat in the garden. Chijioke laughed. "Maybe if we cover two of them, she'll finally be normal." Ifunanya remained silent, her heart heavy with sadness. Despite the cruelty, she showed no malice. She offered her siblings smiles and acts of kindness, though they were rarely reciprocated. The servants avoided her, whispering superstitions about her evil eyes. Even her parents barely acknowledged her existence. Still, Ifunanya found solace in the palace garden. She often spoke to the birds and plants, her only companions. One evening, as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, Ifunanya sat by the lotus pond. Gazing at her reflection, the sight of her 4 eyes made her sigh heavily. "Why am I like this?" she whispered. "You are like this because the gods willed it." Startled, Ifunanya turned to see an elderly woman draped in colorful robes. Her staff was adorned with carvings of waves and stars. "Who are you?" Ifunanya asked. "I am a seer. I have come to tell you that your gift is a blessing, not a curse," the woman replied. Ifunanya scoffed. "A blessing? No one sees it that way. They will when the time comes. You will save them all, but first you must endure." Before Ifunanya could ask more, the seer vanished, leaving a faint scent of wildflowers behind. Years passed and the rain came. At first, the people of Umako rejoiced, grateful for the water to nourish their crops. But as the days turned into weeks, the rain grew heavier and the rivers became to swell. "The gods are angry," villagers whispered. "It must be the curse of the 4-eyed princess." Ifunanya heard the accusation but said nothing. Her isolation deepened as even the palace staff blamed her for the misfortune. One night, as the rain lashed against her window, Ifunanya felt a strange pull. She wandered to the flooded garden, where the water seemed to call to her. Closing her eyes, she stretched out her hand, and to her astonishment, the water swiftly and receded slightly. "What is happening to me?" she murmured. The flood water soon became uncontrollably, sweeping away homes and livestock. The people sought refuge in the palace, but even its stone walls began to leak. In the throne room, King Obiora despaired. The kingdom is doomed. Ifunanya must be sacrificed, an elder suggested. The gods demand it. "No," Ifunanya shouted, stepping forward. "I can stop this." Her family stared at her in disbelief. "You?" Adaeze sneered. "What can you do? Let me try," Ifunanya pleaded. King Obiora hesitated before nodding. "Do it, but if you fail, you will be banished." Ifunanya stood at the edge of the swollen river. Her heart pounded as villagers and her family watched. She closed her eyes, feeling the power within her. "Waters of the earth, hear me," she called. The river roared, but Ifunanya raised her hands, and the water obeyed. Slowly the water receded, revealing the land beneath. The people gasped in awe as the skies cleared and the rain ceased. Exhausted, Ifunanya collapsed, but the kingdom was saved. When Ifunanya awoke, she was surrounded by villagers, their faces filled with gratitude. You saved us, the woman said, tears streaming down her eyes. Her family approached hesitantly. King Obiara knelt before her. Forgive me, my daughter. I was blind to your worth. Adeza and Chijoke followed, offering tearful apologies. For the first time, Ifunanya felt truly seen. The celebration in the kingdom of Umuako lasted for weeks. News of Princess Ifunanya's bravery had spread to neighboring lands, and people traveled from far and wide to catch a glimpse of the four-eyed princess who tamed the flood waters. Despite the admiration, Ifunanya remained humble, her heart filled with gratitude for the acceptance she had longed years for. One afternoon, as she walked through the palace gardens, a stranger approached her. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with skin that glittered like polished ebony. His eyes held a warmth that made Ifunanya pause. "Your Highness," he said, bowing deeply, "I am Olumide, a traveler from the North Plains. I came to witness the woman who commands the water." Ifunanya smiled faintly. "You flatter me, Olumide. I am no more than a servant of this land." "No," he said firmly, "you are much more. You are a savior, a beacon of hope." His words stirred something deep within her, something she had never felt before. Over the days that followed, Olumide remained in the palace as a guest of the king. Unlike many who came only to marvel at her unusual appearance, Olumide sought out for her conversation. He asked about her childhood, her favorite flowers, and the books she loved to read. "Why do you care to know these things?" Ifunanya asked one evening as they strolled by the lotus pond. "Because they are pieces of you," he replied simply, "and I wish to know all of you." Ifunanya's heart fluttered, but doubt clouded her joy. "But I am different. These eyes of mine makes you extraordinary," Olumide interrupted, stepping closer. "Do not let the world's ignorance dim your light. I see you, Ifunanya, all of you." No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Tears swelled in her eyes as she realized that, for the first time, someone truly saw her for who she was. As the weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. Olumide admired not only her beauty, but also her wisdom and compassion. He also joined her during her works in the village, where she spoke with the people, ensuring their needs were met as they rebuilt their lives after the flood. One evening, under the light of a full moon, Olumide knelt before her in the garden. "Ifunanya," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You have shown me a love that is pure and unmatched. You have taught me the strength of kindness and the power of resilience. I cannot imagine my life without you. Will you allow me to stand by your side as your partner and your equal for all the days to come?" Tears streamed down Ifunanya's face as she nodded. "Yes, Olumide, I will." The palace erupted in celebration when the news of their engagement spread. For the first time in her life, Ifunanya felt completely accepted, not only by her people but also by someone who loved her unconditionally. The royal wedding of Princess Ifunanya and Olumide was a grand affair, attended by dignitaries from all corners of the land. The palace courtyard was transformed into a paradise of vibrant colors and fabrics of gold and crimson adorning every pillar. Musicians played flutes and drums, their melodies weaving through the laughter and joy of the people. Ifunanya walked down the aisle in a gown woven with silk and adorned with intricate beadwork. Her four eyes, once a source of ridicule, now glowed with confidence and pride. Beside her, Olumide stood tall, his gaze never leaving her. When they exchanged vows, Olumide spoke with a voice that carried across the courtyard. "I vow to honor you, Ifunanya, for the extraordinary woman that you are. Your strength, your kindness, and your heart has made me a better man. I am proud to be yours." Ifunanya's voice trembled with emotion as she responded, You saw me when no one else did. You reminded me of my worth when I doubted it. I promise to love you fearlessly and to stand by your side always. The crowd erupted into cheers as they were pronounced husband and wife. Their union marked the beginning of a new chapter for Umuako as Queen Ifunanya worked tirelessly to rebuild the kingdom, ensuring that every village affected by the flood was restored. She established programs to help the poor and the vulnerable, earning the love and respect of her people. Years later, as Ifunanya stood on the balcony of the palace, watching the sun set over the kingdom she had saved, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Olumide joined her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "You've done so much for this land," he said softly. "We've done it together," she replied, resting her head against his chest. And in that moment, Ifunanya knew that she had not only found love, but also found her place in the world. Her four eyes, once seen as a curse, has become a blessing, not just for her, but for the entire kingdom. I hope you did enjoy this amazing story. If this is your first time of stumbling into Obiageli stories, you're highly welcome. Please don't forget to click on the subscribe button and turn on your bell button to get latest updates. For my returning subscribers,